Are you tired of dating people who disappear? People who ghost you after a few months, few dates? These people are usually what we call dismissive avoidant. The reason they don't commit to the relationship has nothing to do with their feelings. Usually it's around their attachment system. And in this video, I'm going to share with you how you can spot major red flags and also how you can express your needs, how you can build the right relationship and make sure you create the relationship that works for you and commit with someone who loves you, who's someone who deserves you. So as I said in the intro, the reason they didn't commit, the reason they ghosted you is because they probably have an avoidant attachment style. I used to be dismissive avoidant. So I used to ghost my partners when I was in my 20s. And before I started therapy, before I started my studies, this is where I realized that, hold on, there's something going on. So how does it look like? And I think if you want to learn about attachment theory, about how avoidant people behave, follow what I'm doing. If it's the first time you're watching this, my name is Alexis Fernando. I'm a therapist. People call me the avoidant therapist. It's because I want to share my experience as a therapist, but also as a dismissive avoidant, a former dismissive avoidant, to really help you make sense of the situation. And I know it's very confusing when you date an avoidant or when you break up with an avoidant to understand what they are doing and why they are doing things this way. So what the main characteristics of avoidant people is they have this deep need to be independent. Myself before everyone else, before everything else, because when we were little, we were raised to be autonomous. But maybe too young, maybe too autonomous too quickly. The other element is around intimacy. It's about, I don't want to reveal who I am really. I don't want to show you 100% of myself. I don't want to be an open book. Because if I'm an open book, you're going to use that. You're going to make me suffer. And I want to be strong, right? I don't want to be depending on someone who could use that as a leverage. So that's kind of the logic. In a way, for me, when I was younger, it's kind of the hero in movies like Batman, or whenever they fall in love with their girlfriend, with the bad guy, the Joker, the whoever will take that girl as a leverage. So if Batman depends, it's very silly, but when I was a kid, I was like actually rooting for the bad guys because they felt like they didn't have any flaws. They could really do things on their own. And the last thing is around commitment, which is probably why you're watching this video. Everything is going perfectly with this person. You have great moments together. And at some stage, whenever you want to talk about the future, whenever you want them to meet your family, and we discuss about the red flags in a second, they disappear. They freak out. It doesn't make sense. We were happy. Let's continue, right? When you're either secure or have an anxious attachment style, you feel like, okay, if it's going well, why don't we continue? Why don't we make it more? Why don't we expand this? This element of commitment is really about, because if I choose you, I have to commit to this decision. I have to, whenever you make a decision, you say yes to something and no to everything else. And that's daunting when you don't have a self-confidence in what you want, really. So I think, again, I'm not trying to excuse avoidant, and I think there's a lot of avoidant bashing out there, even on in my channel, but it's just for you to understand the mechanics. At the end of the day, I want you to have the right relationship. There's no point continuing a relationship that doesn't work for you. And I'll explain in a second how you can build that relationship. The idea and the narrative, I talk a lot about the stories we are telling ourselves. For avoidant is, if I get too close, I will lose myself, or I might be rejected, or they might hurt me. So I will always keep that person at a distance, keeping things superficial. What you have to understand that the reason they would withdraw, they would disappear, they would ghost, is because it's a nervous system response. So it's not about their feelings, it's about actually this element of closeness will trigger their nervous system, and their coping mechanism, our coping mechanism, is distancing ourselves. So whenever I feel triggered, whenever I'm stressed, rather than connecting with people, my initial response would be to isolate myself, to go back in my room, in my shelter, and be with myself. That's what I did when I was younger. Now, as an adult, as someone who's done the work, I know it's not the right response. All that, you know, it depends on the situation. So sometimes you need to connect when you have a problem, rather than to stay on your own and trying to figure out a solution on your own. And usually that's the best solution. Sometimes it's better to be on your own. So it's just having this ability and this awareness, this versatility to make the right decision for you. And not only base your decision on your nervous system. These are the 3 major red flags. Now, obviously, this is only the beginning of the video because what comes after is more important than those red flags. That's why the red is italic, because it doesn't really matter. And I'll explain in a second. So difficulty expressing feelings. So you're the only one expressing how you feel. You feel that they respond, but it's like they're a bit clumsy. They avoid difficult conversations. So whenever, for example, they would dodge any conflict, any argument, anytime you have, conversation, a deep emotional conversation, it's going to be hard for them to respond. And another one, which I think is very common, is they don't include you in their social life. You don't know their friends, you don't know their family, you can't stay at their place. So the toothbrush test, if you're able to leave your toothbrush at their place, that's a very good sign that it's the right relationship. So these are major red flags, things you could see when you date someone avoidant. Obviously, and again, I'll discuss towards the end what you need to do, because the dynamic of the relationship might change from the beginning to the 9 to 12 months mark. I want to share with you the green flag. I think nowadays we talk a lot about the red flags. And there's so much stigma on the red flags. And then we are hyper vigilant. We rule out the right partners. There's a hic in relationships. So the point here is it's very simple actually, relationship. That's what I want to say. If you want to have a successful relationship, at the end of the day, it's very, very simple. The green flags, it's not about the chemistry. It's not about the butterflies in your belly, the feelings. It's not about the gifts, the things that they would bring you. I remember when I was in my 20s, I would have massive romantic gestures with my partner and then disappear after 3 months. And of course, like they were, what the F is going on? It's not about the romantic things, the moments, the sex. It's not the fact that their mother loves you. It's not about that. And there's only one green flag, and this green flag is applicable regardless of their attachment, that's the only green flag that you need to spot in the relationship. Of course, you need to be in love with that person. You need to have feelings for that person. And I don't have to convince you. So don't date people you're not in love with. But the thing is, the only thing that matters is this element of accountability and growth mindset. What I mean by that is that I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Sorry to break. Sorry to share this news. Your partner is not perfect. Your date is not perfect. Your husband, your wife will not be perfect. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is that they're doing the necessary to actually overcome any of their shortcomings. They make the effort to understand your side of the relationship. They make the effort to repair when things are broken, right? It's called earned security. So it's basically our ability to reflect on automatic differences. So I discussed before, the reason they ghost, the reason they disappear, it's usually a nervous system response. As adults, we have the ability to know better than just our knee-jerk effect and able to change a healthier response. So as I said before, my initial nervous system response, whenever I'm stressed, would be to run away, get in my car and run and drive. That's what my dad would do when he had an argument with my mother. He'd go, run, take his car and drive for half an hour. Is it the right option? Is it the right solution? Is it the right outcome? Is it how you solve things? Not necessarily. Okay? So it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're really angry at someone, you need to take a break, but you also need to come back to the person and repair. That's very important. And I think a lot of avoidance, they disappear, and then they reappear as if nothing happened. When this is the case, and again, this is also applicable to people who don't have necessarily an avoidant attachment style. What it means is that anytime we will disagree on something, anytime we will see the world in a different way, if it's not solved, if we don't work on that, gradually we will drift apart, right? Because gradually, week after week, month after month, I will feel disconnected with this person because they don't understand me. Because I feel I can't project things. I don't feel we are part of a team. It becomes you versus me. And I don't want to be in a relationship where I feel it's a battle, right? I want to be in a relationship where I feel we're a team. And in a team, guess what? You have people with different backgrounds, with different sets of skills, with different set of shortcomings. It doesn't matter as long as they have the same objective, the same common goal, and they are working towards that goal. So that's the only thing that matters, is this element of accountability. I messed up and I'm sorry and I want to repair. And the growth mindset. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm going to work at improving. And if you're watching this video, you have this growth mindset, I can assume, because you're here because you want to improve the quality of your relationship. You want to improve the decisions when it comes to your relationship. So welcome and well done. And if you want to watch more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. It helps the algorithm to know that my content is it's good stuff. So what should you do now? First of all, and I think again, if you want to learn about attachment style, there's plenty of content creators, Ty Gibson, myself, Matt Hussey is quite good on commitment. The idea is understand your attachment and understand how it might affect your partner. So if you have an anxious attachment style, you will more likely trigger your avoidant partner, because anxious people, they feel the need to be close to their partner. And closeness, as we discussed, is triggering for avoidant. So that doesn't mean that you should never commit, that you should be saying yes to everything, that you should have an 20% type of relationship with your partner. No, it means that you need to understand where you're triggered, how you can develop a secure attachment style, and creating a secure base outside of the relationship. So that's a secure base in the relationship. So that's what I do with my clients. I help them create a secure base for their relationship and in their life. What you can also do, and that's what I do as part of my programs, is assessment settings. It's basically test. And see if they respond positively or not. So it's about meeting your family, doing things together, those micro commitments. And if you see early on that they bail out, that they're not keen, this is a sign that actually they're not doing anything to commit, to repair, to connect with you. What you need to do again is, I know love, obviously I'm a relationship therapist. Love is amazing and it's important. And we always have to be in the right relationship. But it should not be the only thing you should be obsessed about. And I know nowadays dating seems to take a lot of importance in people's life. Maybe because you hate your job. But the point is, it's important to manage the other elements, which would be around hobbies, friends, projects, could be work, but things, if we look at the wheel of life, so it's a coaching tool that I use with my clients as well. You only have, the relationship is one part of the wheel of life. You have money, personal development, sports, activity, hobbies, friends, etc., etc. So it's important because the thing is, if you over rely on the relationship, what will happen is that you will tend to cling more, and then that will hijack the relationship with your avoidant partner. So that's the 3 things I think you could be doing. And have a look in the description. There are plenty of tools, free tools that you can use to get unstuck. Now, you're in a situation where you're not so sure whether you should stay with this person. You have feelings, you know they have feelings, but you don't necessarily appreciate how they treat you. You feel you're navigating in the dark, you're walking on eggshells. What could you do? 3 simple simple test, because that's the $1 million question. Should you stay or should you go? And I could like spend 3 hours on the topic, but like just let me share with you 3 simple tests. The first one, the easiest one, is to ask yourself, do you feel yourself in this relationship? It's very simple, and a lot of people, they tend to forget, especially if you have an anxious attachment style, because there are elements of losing our identity in the relationship. When you are in the codependent relationship, you lose your identity as part of a relationship. So it's important to ask yourself, like, am I really myself? Do I feel I can do things I like? Do I think I can express what I need, what I want? If you're not sure, to me, that's a no. The other one, which is very simple, if you were to describe your relationship to your best friend, your best friend was to describe your situation, what would you tell him or her to do? And it's very interesting because when you reframe this way, people tell me, oh yeah, I would tell her or him to walk away. But that's different because I'm in love with them. Right? It's different because I know them. No, it's not different. You're attached to a certain part of the relationship. You are, in a way, forgetting yourself as part of the relationship because you gave all of yourself. Right? You're committed in this relationship. That doesn't mean that was the right decision. And so when you talk to someone about a situation, when the person is not involved, of course they have the distance. And that distance gives you that clarity that you might need. The other one is the trajectory. It's really about, again, this element of growth mindset. It doesn't matter where we start. What matters is, are we making progress? So again, that's what I do with my clients, is we try to repair the relationship. Sometimes it doesn't work, but the only thing is we need to assess over time if the person is responding positively or not. If the person we're in love with, we want to commit with, is also doing the work. And so there are elements of, yes, developing a secure attachment style, making sure that you don't hijack their nervous system. Once you do that, and you present yourself and you create that secure base, it's a question of like, okay, can we improve? Because when I drew these 2 hands drifting apart, the fascinating thing around relationship, and you can ask people who've been together for 10, 20, 30 years, is this ability to actually improve the relationship over time. There's not a day, or not a day, it's a bit extreme, where I'm not surprised on things about my wife, or you can never know someone 100%. And because, when you have kids, when, life happens, that will also influence the dynamic of the relationship. I see the relationship as something organic, right? It's a living thing. And if you have the right mindset, accountability, growth mindset, this is fascinating and it's actually empowering. My view is that there are 4 stages in a relationship. Honeymoon phase, and I'll discuss in a second what it is. Then you have this phase of, okay, let's commit. So you transition from passion to compassion. And then there's a phase of conflict, right? A phase of clash, right? Most couples, they struggle with this phase and they break up. But the 4th one is around growth. Is when you finally are able to connect and align. I call that pragmatic empathy, when you have the ability to understand your partner's world. They understand your world. And that implies that you also have a strong awareness of your attachment, of your insecurities, of your past, of your limited beliefs, and that you're able to express those to your partner. Which means that it's not that you're an open book, but which means that you give your partner your user guide. They give you their user guide. And this way, you speak the same language and it becomes easy. When I say easy, no, because life is hard and you might have challenges, but at least you know how people function. And when you speak the same language, yes, it's way easier to address, fix, and repair things. So the honeymoon phase, the 0 to 9 months, which is where you have the butterflies in the tummy, everything is new, it's all about passion, you have sex every day. This has no value in terms of assessing the relationship strength. Zero value. Because it's more around, again, the element of passion. The relationship will differ, will evolve to a compassionate stage. So those first elements just tell you that you have feelings, that there's chemistry. But that doesn't mean you're compatible. Because the problem is, a lot of people, it's not that they pretend, and we all do actually, but the foundation of the relationship is mostly based on passion and on excitement and novelty. That's not sustainable, right? And the point is not to maintain a honeymoon phase. That's not possible. But then when you pass the 9 months, 12 months mark, this is where actually you'll start being more yourself. This is where you start maybe be more assertive on what you want, on what you... This is where you're going to have this commitment thing. So at the beginning of a relationship, you're a yes person. Everything is great. It's amazing. You don't have conflict. You don't fight. After the 9 months, 12 months mark, this is where you start to actually confront point of view. That's not bad in itself. You know, you're fundamentally two different people. It's normal that you confront yourself, your point of views, and in a way find, it's not a compromise, but find the right dynamic, the right structure, the right base for you to be fulfilled and have this healthy relationship. Now, the problem is, love bombing is very common for avoidant attachment. As I said, I used to love bomb my partners. I didn't know it was love bombing, but at that time, I don't think the word existed. The reason I did it, and I think that's the case for most avoidant, is because we are in love, we love relationships, or the idea of relationship. We don't necessarily love the commitment, but we love this idea of relationship, of being in love. And what we love is this element of control on our partner. If I do this, if I have this gesture, they will respond. And I will feel a sense of control, and I will feel that I'll make them happy, right? Which is an amazing feeling. And in a way, you feel like, oh, okay, it's a very transactional relationship. I do this, they're happy. That's a great relationship, easy, right? I don't have to do anything. And love bombing can be simple in a way. You know, buying things, sending nice words, etc. Doesn't cost anything. The problem is it's not sustainable, obviously. And so whenever you do that to get that dopamine rush, that excitement, then it's not something sustainable. And then you start thinking like, oh yeah, but I don't want this relationship where, you know, I need to call back. I need to send you things when I travel. I need to, you know, we always want the upside of the relationship. And we sort of, it's a very immature way of looking at a relationship. It's a very like romantic movies way of looking at relationships. Now, the other thing is, when you date, and it's been 9 months, 6 months, and you invested a lot, of course, emotionally, time-wise, maybe your money, etc., it's very hard to let go of a relationship. And this bias is called the sunk cost fallacy. So whenever you invested into something, it's very hard to let go. That's why the test of asking your best friend what they would do. They are not involved. They don't have this bias of sunk cost fallacy. For them, it's zero investment. This is the situation. This is the fact. This is the hard truth. And I would walk away if I was in your shoes. So again, it's not because you invested a lot that actually it's healthier. It's actually, try to reframe this. It's because you invested a lot and you don't see any result in terms of you feeling connected with this person, that's actually not the right relationship. Now, a good thing, when I prepared this video, there's been a poll recently. 44% of daters say that actually quick, enthusiastic follow-up is more attractive than playing aloof. I remember when I was dating, back in the days, I get your How I Met Your Mother was a big show, and Barney Stinson had always like tons of theories on dating, and there was like never ever message a girl after 48 hours. So I remember when I was studying in the US, there was all this dating thing around like no, never reply within 24 or 48 hours, etc. So now it's not cool anymore. And you have the right to expect early on and assess whether the person is playing games or not. Because if you're watching this video, I guess you don't want to play games. You want to be in a healthy relationship. You don't want to waste time, and because time is precious and you're precious, and you don't want to waste time with people who are just toying around or just want to have, fun and not necessarily be in a committed relationship. And by the way, I forgot to mention that if you are in the process of trying to get back with your avoidant partner, or you're just dating an avoidant partner and you want simply to figure out whether it makes sense, there's also an assessment in the description. It's totally free, and in 30 seconds, you'll have a clear idea of what you should be doing next. Now, how can you communicate your needs? Because it's also about communication. First element is state the impact and not judge, not accuse the person. So it's on the principle of nonviolent communication. You start with the feeling, I felt anxious when you did that, rather than you never call back. Because when you say you never call back, there's an assumption that they see the world the same way you see the world. They don't. Right? They don't. For them, it's not logic. And I remember when I was in my 20s, I was like always thinking like, okay, I put myself in their shoes. But if I were, if she was traveling, I didn't care whether she messaged me or not, right? Because I would see the world from their shoes with my brain, with my operating system. That's not enough. So that's the pragmatic empathy element. It's like, it's not only about putting yourself in their shoes, it's putting yourself in their shoes with how they think. So that's why you need to educate them. I feel this when this happens. And then be clear on the ask. Can we get a 5-minute check-in? I call that when you're in a relationship, you have to, the same way when you have kids, it's way easier to manage things when you have clear set of rules. It sounds a bit like not very romantic, etc., but it will avoid a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstanding, because we make assumptions, because we think people see the world, we see the world. When you have rules saying like, when this happens, I expect you to do this and that, and it's very clear, and the person has feelings, cares about you, he or she will follow, because they know it's important. And the thing is, when you have those rules, you don't have to repeat yourself, right? You don't have to assume that they get it. A lot of women, they will say like, he should know. No, never assume that your husband should know. They don't. Right? So rather than saying he should know that when we do that, this happens. No, I'm sorry. No, don't assume. Maybe it makes sense for 99% of women, but if it doesn't make sense for your husband, just teach him. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. In a way, you could perceive him as being stupid and not making any effort. It's more about like the way he sees the world. Once he gets it, and it's not a question of because everybody can get it, then he would just apply it. Because if he's stupid, he's just going to follow rules stupidly, right? If I look this image. And then the other element is obviously about being neutral. And this is where we are back to developing a secure attachment style, managing your emotions, not being able to be hijacked by your nervous system. And also about this element of it's honesty more than perfection. I might mess up. I might get angry. I might have what we call protest behaviors when you're anxious. But I'm also able to repair, and I'm going to show you how I do it. Right? The thing is, avoidant partner will make the necessary to repair, to reconnect. Avoidant, they will deflect. They are called dismissive avoidant. They dismiss things. It's not important. I don't care. And I'm going to reappear magically after a month. Hey, what's up? Like nothing happens. That's not acceptable. So I know nowadays it seems that the dating world could be brutal. And the problem is avoidants are overly represented online. The reason is, so statistically 50% of people are secure. And then you have, depending on the stats, but about 25-30% of avoidant, and the rest are anxious. The problem is, because avoidant, they stay in short-term relationships, they get back into the dating pool more often than secure people who get in committed relationship most of the time. So the thing is, what you have to do is consider that the beginning of the relationship, those dates are little experiments. It's not about being hyper vigilant, it's about taking things. First date is only a first date. That doesn't mean that this person is going to be the love of your life. It's just like the first date. Second date, etc., etc. And I know it's very hard because we want to make it happen. We want to project. We want a future. We want to dream about this relationship. And it's about like, okay, this is only the fourth date. This is only the fifth date. And I only know this person up to this point. And it's a mistake to assume that what we have right now is exactly what will happen because of this element of passion to compassion after the honeymoon phase. So that's where you need to assess those early signs of avoidance in the relationship and assess the response. So it doesn't matter, again, if they're avoidant. You can be avoidant, have kids, have a happy marriage, etc. The point is like, what are you doing? And this ability to communicate your insecurities. So obviously not on the first date, but at some stage. Because if you manage to share to your partner your world, your insecurities, your triggers, they can get it. And then you can see whether they take it into account. Because if they don't take it into account, if it's important to you, if you feel in a certain way when things happen, when you do this and that, and they don't take it into account, yes, walk away, that's not the right relationship. If that was helpful, let me know in the comment section. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. And I'll see you next time. Take care.